Hey everyone, and welcome to Nerfcast.
This is Josh.
And this is Shawn.
Hey, Shawn, what are we doing today?
I'm gonna get sick of this joke so quickly.
Frosted Flakes, Shawn! Frosted Flakes!
They're more than good. They're pretty basic. I mean, honestly, that's why there are so many generic versions of Frosted Flakes out there. But we have something that's actually good in basic on the show right now. We have Jason from Basic Nerf.
Yay, Jason!
Hey guys.
Oh.
What's up? What's up? It's me, Jason from Basic Nerf here.
Hey, thanks for being on the show, man.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, guys. Thanks for having me. I've been a fan ever since you guys released your first episode, and I'm glad you guys have been organizing games up there in the Bay Area of California.
Awesome.
Dude,
yeah, so
thank you.
let's assume that whoever is listening to our podcast is living under a rock, which is possible. I've seen our viewership, and that would explain why we get such poor reception. Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? Let us know a little bit more about the man behind Basic Nerf.
Yeah, we'll do what we did with My Last Start. What got you into Nerf?
You know, maybe not everyone wants to talk about My Last Start. Okay, he's stabbing me with a pen. People like talking about My Last Start, but I want to talk about Basic Nerf now.
I said, let's have the secret origin. Punch you in the face.
All right. So my origin of Basic Nerf is I've seen Nerf throughout early 2000s and commercials. I've even owned a couple Super Soakers in the 90s. But I didn't know it was it was a Nerf brand. It had this whole foam blasting thing going on. But I love the idea of toy guns as a kid. Me and my friends would get these wooden boards that we'd find around our church, and we'd use them to pretend blast each other. And so as we got older, me and my best friend were walking through Kmart in 2009, and we stumbled upon the foam blaster section. We were so amazed, oh my goodness, where everything's been our whole lives. And so our first purchases were a Busby rapid fire tech rifle, and a Busby Tommy 20.
Nice.
And then my love of Nerf had just grown from there. And then in summer 2011, the Nerf public relations found my site, and so they send me free Nerf stuff to keep and test and review and share with all the fans.
Dude, that's totally awesome.
So what I want to know is, do you have extra blasters?
I do.
That's all I hear every single time someone tells me they get promo stuff from Nerf. I'm like, cool. I have too much stuff and I'm paying for it, so you have to have way too much stuff. Or you're an actual thrifty, frugal individual that knows how to control their budget and not spend it all on children's toys like I do. So, could be either way on that. So, just to kind of talk about the show, so we're very happy to have Jason on the show today. What we're going to be talking about today, actually, we've been getting a lot of comments about this recently. There's been some buzz on Reddit about it, too. We're going to talk about how to organize and run a Nerf War. Yep, and it's kind of interesting because I had thought that we talked about this topic before. We mentioned it a little bit when we talk about the off-season, basically how to prep for your next Nerf War.
Right.
But we didn't go into too much detail about actually running a Nerf War itself.
True facts. I mean, it's something that me and Shawn have talked about a lot off the podcast. I guess it just felt like we must have already talked about this, but a lot of people kept asking for it, so, I mean...
By the way, I'm not sure if everyone realizes this, but Josh and I do run a game in the Bay Area. I think we mentioned it, but we also got some comments saying, oh, you guys have a clan up in the Bay Area? I didn't know that. And I thought it was obvious, but apparently it's not. So if you live in the Bay Area and listen to this podcast, we have a game. And the good news is if you live in California and you're listening to this and you're like, well, this sucks. They live in Northern California. Where's my Nerf game down here in Southern California? That's what Jason's here for.
That's
He's your
right.
guy to talk to.
Bam. Yep. It's me.
The man from SoCal.
Yes. So while we're talking about where we're all from, I think the number one topic usually when you want to start talking about a Nerf War is where to have it, what location you're going to play in when you're running your Nerf War.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think there's quite a few things that we need to look into when you think about what you're going to do when running a Nerf War. I don't know. How do you do it, Jason?
Well, there's always a couple thoughts that pop up first when I want to have a Nerf War. But when I start digging through them and divulging them, the first serious question that comes up in my head is, yes, where are we going to have this Nerf War at?
Yeah, definitely something to consider, especially if you know at least most people, I assume, start out with sort of their friends hanging out and having a Nerf war. So you know about how many people you're going to get probably at the first game or so. And if you can't fit them in your backyard, you're probably going to need to look for a place to have a Nerf war.
Yes. And also, you kind of want to take stock of what kind of war you guys want to have. To me, there are two main types of Nerf wars that have kind of been dominating the landscape as of late.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, the obvious one, humans versus zombies, hugely popular on college campuses all around the U.S. I know there's a LARPing scene over in Germany that's very big into humans versus zombies as well.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, you're usually dealing with bigger crowds, need more space to play with. If you're just playing with a, say, handful of friends, 10 to 15 people, it gives you a lot more flexibility on where you're going to play. Always think about what kind of access you have to places you're going to. So, for example, if you know a friend who has like a, say, like one of our friends runs a HeroClix shop, which is a tabletop game. I'm assuming there's some crossover level with nerdiness going on with this podcast, so hopefully people will know what HeroClix is. He has a shop, so we got to play in his parking lot a couple times, so that was very nice. We also would usually go to public places, kind of like parks. We would go to sometimes elementary schools, just because a lot of times when school hours are not in operation, they're pretty much free use. People go there to play basketball, to play tennis, and of course, when they're not being used down the hallways, it's a good place to play Nerf as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that everything sort of comes together down to like the who, what, when, where, why, how type thing. You got to ask yourself when you want to start a game, because the what is what do you want to do? Do you want to play humans versus zombies? Do you want to just do some CTF with some friends? How do you want to? What do you want to accomplish? Um, who sort of dictates how many people you're gonna have, and that leads to like where you're gonna have it. Because if you're gonna have again a small group of people and you're only gonna be just doing some team deathmatch or whatever, you might not need a big area. If you want to do like a big objective based humans versus zombies where people have to get from point A to point B, you might need multiple locations. We've been in wars where that's happened before.
Yeah, up in San Francisco, there's a guy who runs a game up there. They have a meetup group, so you can check them out.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, what he did is he started us in one park location, and then once the game started, we transitioned from a rally point to the next rally point to the next rally point, just going objective to objective.
Yeah.
It was very interesting just because you kind of get a tour of the city, you get to check out San Francisco, you get to see these parts of the city you didn't even know existed, and because it's such a dense city environment, a lot of people were easily able to get over to the locations thanks to public transportation.
Mm-hmm.
That's super awesome.
Oh, it was really cool. Something to consider too, of course, is basically where you're located. I mean, Josh and me up here, we live close to the city, so I feel like we're playing in a lot of urban environments.
Mm-hmm.
If you're out in the middle of Oklahoma or somewhere out in the wilderness, like Montana, you can go out into the woods and probably play. No one's going to get disturbed. No one's going to get bothered. It's just a matter of what's open to you. So, Jason, when you're playing, what are some locations you've noticed have worked out well for you?
Well, first off, I want to say I used to plan a decent amount of games with my friends, and then this group down here called Norwalk Regional Nerf League contacted me, and so I pretty much run with them now, and their organizers like organize stuff. But based on what I've seen from them, and based on what I've seen in me organizing my stuff, let's see. I've played in a couple different places with friends before. Some places are kind of like um, unorthodox, I guess you can say.
Mm-hmm.
I used to go to a college, but I go to a different one now. But this other one I went to, my friends were there, and we played in the biology building,
Nice.
like kind of like at night. So like no one isn't really there too much. And the hallways are, they're fairly long, but there's like little doorways and niches, so you can kind of use that for cover. And we played in that until we got some word that the teachers weren't really comfortable with us running around in there. So we said, shoot, gotta move it. So we moved it to a different part of campus. We moved it to outside this art department.
Mm-hmm.
There was more open space there. It wasn't as close, but the engagement points, like walls were here, and corners were in other areas. It was close enough where you can still have fun, and there was still a lot of places to run and get exercise. And we played there, and we weren't bothering anyone for a bit as well. And then a teacher there said she wasn't comfortable with guns and war. So we were like, shoot. So security had to kick us out of these places both times because, they're just trying to do their job.
Of
Right.
And
course.
so, yeah, we moved it to. Sorry, this might take a while. I'm just going to go through all the places. So,
Go
Go
for it,
for
man.
it.
can get. All right. So I feel like everyone can get the best view. So after that, we moved it to a park that was pretty close to the school campus. And that one has like two kind of kids' playground areas with the playground equipment.
Mm-hmm.
They're maybe like 70 to 80 feet apart. And so you can kind of have all sorts of game matches between those two, like capture the flag between them. Me and my friends had this game type called Siege the Fort. There's just a lot of different. There was space out there, and the kids' playground areas provided some cover, so that was definitely a plus. Um,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah. So after that, just like not last summer, last year, I stopped going to that college, but I'm still friends with those people. And we don't really get to see each other sometimes except for Nerf. Like, let's get together in Nerf. I'm like, all right, I gotta organize it because with these guys, they're my friends, and I have all the blasters, so they're always borrowing stuff from me.
Can I stop you for a second? I feel like that's
Go
the
for
story
it.
with most people who organize Nerf events. It's like, here is how this is going to go down. I have a group of friends who like me and think the idea of Nerf is cool. I have a bunch of blasters. Our first war Josh and I run, actually, it was a barbecue, and we had just brought our entire artillery, everything we owned. It was him, me, and another friend who brought most of their stuff, and just everyone borrowed everything.
That's a good way to get people into Nerf. I mean,
The
they
first
don't want
taste
to make
is
a
always
commitment.
free. The first taste is always free.
There you go.
Uh,
Totally. That's how I got pretty much all that particular group of friends into Nerf. The ones
Mm.
who weren't familiar, I was like, hey, check this out. Oh, it's a lot of fun. Like, oh, you want to play with us later? Like, oh yeah, sure. And so it kind of Nerf I found kind of like enforces our social relationship with that particular group of friends.
Right.
mhm.
And yeah, it's like, we have the basis is our friendship already, but the Nerf wars just kind of build on top of it.
Oh yeah.
I was gonna say after this park, we I stopped going to that college. So I didn't really get to see my friends as much, but they still wanted to play. So I said, hey, let's try something different then. Because one of the friends actually, he was going back to Australia real soon. So I
Ooh.
was like, hey, let's try something different for him. And so I brought him to my church, and we played indoor game.
Ooh.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that real quick? Where were you playing?
I will not divulge the location just
Of
yet.
course, you don't have to be specific, but
I was playing in a church. I was playing in a church though.
you were playing in a house of God
Kinda,
with
sorta.
weapons.
I wouldn't call them weapons. Call them toys.
Let me ask you, Jason, have you seen the movie Red State?
Sounds a little familiar, but I have not.
It's a movie with Kevin Smith, and it's about basically if the Westboro Baptist Church got heavily armed and went to war with everyone. So when you say you're playing Nerf in the church, I'm like, you know what? Kevin Smith did a movie about this. So hopefully your story goes better. Continue.
um, well, pretty much the only place we don't play is like the main sanctuary, 'cause that's where like everyone worships, and that's a little holy in most religions, so we didn't play in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I banned upstairs areas because it's really hard to get up there with foam coming down at you.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, everywhere else is free to go. We played in there and we had a lot of fun. Close quarters, most engagement ranges are like 30 to 40 feet, sometimes less. And yeah, and then I played in another park with this Norwalk group I mentioned earlier. They have two kids' playgrounds areas that are about 60 feet apart. So everyone just kind of gets in the playground area and shoots each other and uses the playground for cover. And that's pretty much the big places that I've played at.
Nice, nice. um, Now, when you actually were scout, did you ever like scout out locations at any
I
point, or were
have
you just sort of
scouted a
like,
few.
yeah, this looks like a good place to play, and just kind of went with it?
I'm actually kind of always like, what's the word I'm looking for? passively scouting, if that makes sense. I'm like,
There you
if
go.
I got into a firefight with foam, how far away would they be from here and stuff like that?
Oh, no, I know what you mean. I recently went on a road trip down to Las Vegas for a trade show, and like the whole road trip there, like everything we passed by, I was like, oh man, that looks like awesome. How fun would it be to Nerf over here? Like we passed an oil field, and there were these giant things like getting oil, and
Derricks.
we're like, oh, it would be so fun to play in that field. Oh, look at this orchard. Could you imagine hiding behind these? It was just awesome.
No, it was the same when we went up to San Francisco. The first thing I did when we got to the location, I look around like, okay, where am I going to hide
Right.
when all the zombies come to attack me? And the first thing I locked my eyes onto is like, oh, there's a circle of trees right over there in that green. So when stuff goes down and it gets dangerous, all of us are going to break for there, hide behind cover, and take out the zombies as they come for us.
Right?
I think that's kind of when I'm scouting, I always kind of think, what would be a fun situation to get in with this landscape? If poop hits the fan, where are you going to run to? And if there's not a place to run to, is it a good battlefield?
Yeah. I mean, I guess, yeah. I would say to people, to bring this back to people that are starting to start a game, always be sort of on the lookout for locations. Just as far as the way structures are there, if you think it would be a fun place to play. Another couple of things when we were actually actively scouting for locations that I looked for, or that me and Shawn looked for, were obviously
Shawn and I looked for.
No, it's me and Shawn.
It's just going to be you if you keep using bad grammar like that.
Nerfcast, Josh, and Shawn.
Hey, who presented the name to you? It was Shawn, who was courteous enough to give you the top filling. And yet you haven't realized that my voice always starts the podcasts.
This is true.
That's true.
One of the things that we looked for was obviously if it's open to the public, because if it's not, you have to potentially look for
harder.
Getting permissions from someone, because people own things and people are always cautious of people getting hurt on their property and getting sued. So it's understandable, So obviously a lot of parks and things like that are open to the public, good places to play. If they're not open to the public, talk to somebody. A lot of people play on campuses or schools. If it's a campus or a school, you might want to talk to if they have security there about, we want to run some Nerf games and see if it's okay. One of the big things for me, and I remember mentioning when we were first going, was, is there going to be like a public restroom for people to use? Because we could go places out in the middle of nowhere, or places that were like, oh, cool, there might not be any security here and we might be able to play, but if there's, and we run games all day long. They're not like, we're going to go play Nerf for like an hour or two. It's like,
yeah, original games were like 10 to 7.
Yeah.
It was
they're all day games.
Yeah.
It's longer than us.
So I wanted to make sure there were definitely restrooms for people to use. But yeah, other than that, I mean, there's still a lot of places.
And if you're worried about a lot of the things I was looking for initially when we were scouting, when Josh and I were scouting, we were looking at a lot of parks and looking for, okay, the trees will make good cover, the bushes will make good cover. Don't be afraid to get a little creative. If you want to build your own cover out of boxes, using PVC pipe, anything like that, it allows you a lot more flexibility with the field you're trying to create. And I know in the future we're probably going to post some guides showing off how we constructed some of the props we use in our games. But definitely, if you can come up with a method to kind of take the environment and make it work for you, that's a plus. If you're starting out your first game, it's a little complex to go that route. I would say initially just look for good places that naturally kind of have cover to hide behind. But in the future, if you want to try different locations, try different things out, parks are always a good place to start out with. Like I mentioned, public elementary schools that are open to the public after hours, those are actually fantastic. I don't know if that's just a California thing or not, but a lot of our schools are outdoors. So you get those hallways, those little grooves and doors you can hide behind, little bits of cover that really work well naturally without having to change too much stuff. And also, a key point, also be aware of how much foot traffic you're getting at these locations.
Yes.
Like I mentioned, we went up to a game in San Francisco a couple weeks ago. It was a great game. The initial problem I had when we're walking up is we're going into this park that must have had 200 people in it.
There were a lot of people in
the
park.
It was a lot. Wow. It was Florida. It was wall-to-wall people basically spread out. They had picnic blankets set down. They were playing with their kids, and I'm like, all right, okay, this is the rally point, but hopefully we aren't playing here because so many people are here, and I don't want to accidentally hit someone or tag someone with a blaster or anything like that. If
Mm-hmm.
you're choosing a park or a school, I'm not saying pick a rundown or bad location, but pick a location that won't be used as frequently by other people, by pedestrians, by people playing games. That way, when you're playing your game, you're not really disturbing anyone, you're not bothering anyone. And which leads me to the next point. Always try and clean up after yourselves too.
Definitely.
There's always a
Yeah.
big adage with Boy Scouts: leave no trace behind. Basically, once you're done in a location, pick up everything, clean everything up. Don't leave a bunch of darts on the field. Don't leave a bunch of like empty food wrappers or soda cans or
Water bottles.
water bottles. That's always the big one. We tell people to hydrate during our games, but if you don't have a garbage can or some sort of waste receptacle, then it's just going to leave a mess. And if someone knows that and gets mad, then they're going to try and block you from playing there. Be
Yeah.
courteous to where you're playing and be respectful. I feel like that's always the biggest adage I can say to a lot of nerfers. Be respectful for where you play and the people who come to your games.
I mean, if it's not a public park and they don't have some sort of waste receptacle there, and you're, playing in the woods, not everybody, California, there's not like a ton of wooded area around us where we are, but maybe you're out playing in the woods, bring like trash bags with you. Throw them in one of your backpacks or a bag with your blasters. At the end of the day, clean up, throw it all in there, take it with you, throw it away properly. Because if somebody does start finding stuff out, they're going to start, maybe patrolling more heavily, maybe looking for who's littering all over the place. So just being respectful. Pretty simple.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, kind of gives your group and a little bit of our hobby a bad reputation as well if you start doing stuff like that or you don't pay attention to public safety, small things like that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, actually, it's not small, but quote unquote smaller things.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's a
Definitely.
lot of things that add up to a big thing.
hmm
That's the way I look at it. Just it's small gestures throughout the day that kind of help out in keeping the field clean, keeping darts shagged, making sure you're not leaving a waste and a lot of big mess behind, or also damaging the property you're around.
hmm
I think that's a fear with a lot of schools and public places. If there are windows nearby that, hey, these people are running around with blasters, what are they going to damage? Are they going to scratch or break windows? Are we going to find a bunch of like holes riddled through our walls? To them, they don't understand that it's
Right.
just foam darts that aren't going to damage.
Yeah.
hmm
But definitely don't encourage people to go that crazy.
Yeah, don't trample plants, don't climb trees, don't do things that are just kind of stupid. Don't. It sounds really cool, like there's a sniper position if I get on the roof, but you fall and you hurt yourself, then the school's definitely going to be making sure that someone's there on the weekends and telling you not to be there, pretty much. So, things like that. And on the issue of safety and, being respectful and being safe, definitely one of the things you want to have essential for your game is a set of rules that is clearly defined and well thought out before you start the game so that you can tell them to everybody. If you have a website, put them on the website. If not, try to print them out and bring them so that you can read them off to people. It's there in black and white. If not, just really, really go over them with people because rules, and not just rules about being hit or, and calling yourself out and things like that, but rules like wearing eye protection, rules that you want there to enforce if you're going to have limitations on blasters or ammo. We do mostly stock wars, and I think you do too, Jason.
Yeah, pretty much.
So we've been to wars where people have metal washers at the end of homemade darts. And obviously their rules allow for that, and for us they don't. We don't want any windows broken or things like that. So take into account your location and where you're playing and if that sort of safety is a concern to you or not. You
Yeah,
know?
I would say right away, just never assume anything is obvious.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the mistake a lot of groups make when they first do it. That I have a mentality for what Nerf should be like. This is great if you're listening to this podcast, you're heeding our messages, trying to take advantage of the knowledge we're trying to bestow on you.
hmm
But all the people you're inviting, you have to assume that none of them are familiar with Nerf. Even if they're great players, they're around a lot, there's always going to be one or two
True.
who think they can get away with anything.
Can I share a story? Can I share a story on that?
Go ahead.
All right. So I was playing with the Norwalk Regional Nerf League, and this was about I want to say earlier this year. And one of the guys there, he he was on and off of the league. Like he joined and he left for some dispute reasons. He got angry, but then he came back like late 2012. But we were playing and we had cover in like this park area. We had some cardboard set up on the kids' playground areas.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like down below on he's on the other team, but I'm down below on our side and I'm firing away. And I hear a couple times whap, 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 and I'm like, what the heck? And I look at him and he has like a single Titan and he's firing Stephens and not everyone's wearing eye protection.
Oh yeah.
So I had to jump out in the middle of the game and I was like, I had to definitely call a timeout for that.
Oh
But
yeah.
again, even though like you said, people might be veterans or stuff, it's just definitely be clear on rules.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, also for if you're trying to grow it to people who may not know what Nerf is, or even what sort of kind of action sports are. I mean, we've had people at our game that have shown up and we're like, all right, the respawn time is this and this, and the respawn points are here. And then I'm really glad they asked because I think a lot of people would be too like embarrassed, but they were like, what is a respawn? How does this work? And we're happy to explain it to them, but I mean, it reinforced that, oh, just assume that everybody has no idea about anything.
Actually, something that Josh and I do at our games, which I think Josh was the one who started doing it really, but I love it absolutely, is wherever we play, Josh and I, of course, scouted out the field, looked for all the cool places where we think combat's going to happen, where major firefights are going to happen, where people are getting tagged left and right.
Right.
But if people are just showing up to the site for the first time, they're new to the sport, they're not going to have that same type of eye for detail. So what Josh and I do at the beginning of our games, besides going over the basic rules, respawn time, how we believe hits should be counted between people, we do a tour of the field. We go through our locations and say, okay, there are some boxes here you can hide behind for cover. Over here's a hallway with some little grooves and doors you can hide behind. Right here is a cone marked where the respawn point is. This is where you go if you're on this side. Here's the flag. We do an in-depth look at the entire field. So that way a new player doesn't have to sit there and kind of test out different routes to see what works or just tries to go one safe route the entire game. With our games, we try and have multiple avenues for getting to objectives, so you're not just being shoehorned into one position. This way new players know where everything is, they know the field, and we can slowly explain the rules to them too. And plus, it's kind of a good little warm up to get everyone focused to say, hey, we're walking as a group, we're talking about certain things. It's a great way just to kind of get ready to start the game just before you actually start doing matches in the game.
Mm-hmm. Plus, it helps for especially if most of us aren't in an area where like, cool, we're playing in a building and everything is in bounds. Go. If you want to show people boundaries and things that are off limits, it's nice to be like, okay, you can say, oh, over there's a parking lot that's off bounds. But if you walk up to it and say, cool, it's off bounds here, you can go up to the sidewalk. It gives them a visual, cue of where everything stops or what's supposed to be what. I think it helps in general with people again that are new and haven't been there before.
Mm-hmm.
True. I mean, even with newer people, recently, the group again that I play with, we had some kind of a little bit of an issue with going into forbidden locations, I guess you can kind of say. We were playing a mini humans versus zombies game at our last decent sized meetup, and you guys ever played humans versus zombies, right? You played that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know how kind of like hectic it can get.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the head organizer said you can go anywhere, I guess. And now I've been nerfing for about 4 years now, so I should have kind of known this. But again, the game gets kind of hectic sometimes. So I kind of like ran through a sandbox area near some playground equipment, where some kids were, and I didn't hit any of the small kids, but just kind of like bringing possible danger, with me as I ran through, like if people were to chase me.
Mm-hmm.
So like as soon as I got to the other side, head organizer told me and some other people like you shouldn't have done that. And so, but he kind of understood at the same time that Nerf games get crazy sometimes. Like earlier in the day, he was playing and he was trying to dodge some shots, and he moved he started moving towards some 2 people playing in the sandbox until he was like pretty much right in front of him, and I had to like kind of stop the game a bit because I was watching and I had to move him away. But to help with the problem that you guys said, or to help with our problem and the possible visual enforcement that Shawn mentioned, we just went ahead and bought some small orange plastic cones, and we set up like a play area for the smaller meat. So that helped us in boundaries, and it seemed like it helped other people too. That hey, like know that helped other people know that we're doing something here. So maybe you should watch out.
Oh, definitely.
I agree. We actually tried doing this in our earlier games too up here. I have a funny story about that, which I can't remember if I've told it or not, but it's one of my favorite stories involving Nerf, where a friend of ours was being very considerate when we were first playing in the parks and having a hard time kind of just saying, hey, the boundary is basically just along this grass, follow the trees. We didn't have a set line or cones or anything like that, and people were just running all over the place. So our friend said, I can solve this problem. He went to Target. No, he went to Walmart, sorry.
Yeah.
Always shop Walmart? What's the saying?
I have no idea.
Look, Walmart, I want your money. I don't know your slogan, but I'm trying to pimp you right now, so just remember who helps you out. So he went to Walmart and got a great deal on some cones and some rope. He went there, we set it up, we tied it down with stakes so the rope was in line, wasn't moving. The cones helped to guide it as well. And then we ended up shifting off the battlefield for a little bit, playing in a different area. And by the time we got back to where we were playing, someone had taken all the rope and all the cones. Just a random person in the park just stole it all.
Yep.
We were about 100 feet away, I think. We were just so enthralled with our game, we didn't notice. But someone just up and took all of our stuff.
Yep.
Maybe we should touch on that topic a little bit in this podcast.
Definitely. Part of location, I think, is having a safe place to put things. And if not, then you should definitely tell people to leave stuff in their car. Because we've been to games where that's happened, where it's like, hey, just so you know, we're going to be moving, or we're not going to be within sight of, any place to put things safely for backpacks and stuff. So either wear things you're going to keep on you, or keep it someplace else secure. Just bring what you need. Where we run games, we have a meetup location, and there are some tables for us to be able to load up. And while we're playing, everybody can part of the field basically goes right next to all the tables, and we just kind of have the tables as part of a boundary. But at almost all times, you can see the tables and see everybody's stuff there. Yeah. So it's like, feel free to leave things there. I wouldn't say throw your wallet out in the open. Probably keep that on you. But, if you want to leave a bag with some Nerf stuff in it or some darts, people are pretty good. And we do try to, like I said, keep it in a secluded area where there's not a ton of people. So there's not a lot of traffic going by and swiping going on.
Yeah, but I think the major point of just having a lot of good rules to go with isn't necessarily just saying, hey, this will help my game types flow smoother, because that is a big part of it.
Definitely.
Structure helps.
Yeah.
But it also just kind of makes it easier for organizing the event, not assuming that everyone is thinking the same way as you. I know oftentimes when Josh and I are thinking of game types or when we're choosing locations, the first thing we say when we see something cool is, okay, how can this be abused now?
Yeah.
How can someone take this, let's say, region in a map and just kind of dominate with it and make it imbalanced? Mm-hmm. Or when we are talking about game types, we can say, okay, with this rule we have right now, how can we just abuse the game and just make it so we can troll people?
We try to be a little bit rules lawyery, where we reread the rules and kind of go, oh, well, we didn't say you couldn't do this, therefore you can. So we better write in something that says you can't do this because someone will find that loophole and exploit it.
I call it the Airbud rule. Because in Airbud, there's a line in Airbud. It's an old movie where a dog plays basketball. And they're like, what are you doing? What's that dog doing on the field? And there's this referee who's holding a rule book. And he says, there's no rules in the rule book that say a dog can't play basketball. And it's like, well, that's obvious, isn't it? And no, it isn't. You should have a line in there that you should only have children from a certain age being able to play basketball. But because they didn't think about it, Airbud gets to play basketball. So that's why I call it the Airbud.
And owns
everybody.
Exactly. That's why we have it in our rules.
No dogs.
No dogs allowed.
Yep.
Actually, we don't have that. Josh, we need to write that in.
No, I like dogs.
Well,
no
I don't.
Cats.
Look. If you have Airbud, you're going to have Airbud 2 Golden Retriever where he plays football. and then you're going to keep going and going, and then you get air buddies and space buddies and spooky buddies and all talking dogs. I don't care how good at basketball Airbud was. Airbud couldn't talk. Her puppies can talk. And I thought Airbud was a dude because Bud is a dude's name, but apparently this dog had puppies that talk.
I'm depressed now. Thank
You
you.
don't want
Shawn.
dogs eating your darts either.
That is
No.
a good point. You don't want dogs eating darts.
You don't. They're just going to think you're playing fetch.
And that you're bad.
Very fast fetch.
At it.
But yeah, to get back on the point, basically, never assume that anything's just going to be understood when it's not clearly explained to people. Always try and think of a counter or a situation that can solve it. And it never hurts to have an elastic clause in your rules, too, that say, hey, if I say something's not okay, then it's not okay.
Exactly.
I mean, it kind of sucks if you have to do that a lot where people come up to you. It's like, there's not a rule on this. What do we do? This. That shows you weren't thinking out the rules enough.
Mm-hmm.
But in certain situations where you can't account for 100% of the things, just say, hey, as a person running this game, a moderator, an admin,
Exactly.
on a certain level, what I say goes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you can, like we said, get the rules up someplace where people can see them, even if it's just your friends and you can email it to them and you don't have a website or a Facebook page or anything, email them.
Or Google Docs. Google Docs has been big lately as far
Yeah.
as having one common area where everyone can look at the rules, check them out, print them out if they want to.
Especially if you're going to have games where certain things are or aren't allowed. We've been to places where there have been like cowboy rounds, what they called cowboy rounds, where you could only use either a strong arm or a
Maverick, Triad, anything that's kind of more like a...
I was going to say rough cut, but yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so they had it restricted to certain blasters, and I mean, luckily we tend to buy almost everything, so we pretty much had it covered. But if I came to the game with just one blaster, because I was like, oh, I'm just going to use this today, and then wasn't allowed to use it in one of the game types, I would have been like, oh, that sucks. So, I mean, it's just something to think about if you're doing it and you're going to have restrictions. Definitely make sure that people know beforehand as much as possible what your rules are and even what game types you're going to play, because people might dress differently and accordingly. I mean, if you're going to do HVZ, people, for the most part, know that they should be bringing a bandana of some sort, but if you don't say you're going to play HVZ and you don't have bandanas for everyone, then you can't really play HVZ.
That's funny because the
True.
leader and me with the last game, I read the rules because I'm like, I'm going to be a good guest. And then I show up and everyone that was invited from our group, Josh, 3 of our other players, I was like, you got bandanas, right? They're like, no, why would we have bandanas?
I had a bandana.
You had one in your car that you
Yeah.
didn't know you were going to need that day.
Yep.
But
I've
you were
had that on me.
prepared. That's why it worked out. But then my other 2 friends showed up. They're like, we need bandanas? I'm like, don't worry, I have like 5. They're set. The gypsy said this would happen. Just like the gypsy said. Otherwise, you're on a highway to the danger zone.
Yeah.
But yeah, how about you, Jason? Are there any basic rules that you think are kind of necessary for talking about a game? Or how do you let your players know basically the ground rules for when you're playing in, say, a park, a church? How do you address that to your players?
Well, recently there's kind of been some of the Air Bud rule, I guess, where that kind of affects our games, like indoor games, for example. Some guys they like using melee stuff, and they like using shields too. So like shoot, but indoor game is already kind of hard enough, and so I was like, I tried a game there with like a shield, and the rule was that this guy had like a pretty decent sized shield though, but he couldn't fire any blasters when he used it. But he's like the other team still had a big advantage, so our team lost that game. So next game I was like, okay, you can use shields, but only if they're made by Nerf. And so at the end of the day, I kid you not, this guy has, one guy had a Strife, and he had the Stampede shield, but like on the front bottom rail.
Mm-hmm.
So like his front bottom is covered, but you can still like aim over the top.
Right.
But the really crazy thing I saw was that some guy had a Retaliator, and he stuck a Stampede shield on top, and then he stuck one on the bottom. On the rails, he had like a double shield. It was kind of crazy.
Wow.
Wait, what was the question again? I'm sorry. I was having fun telling my story.
No, just basically times you've encountered like ground rules that need to be set, or how do you let your players know? Do you start off at the beginning of the games explaining all the rules? Do you have like a Google Docs, an email that goes out to people?
Well, I usually nerf with people that I've played with before. When I host my games, no one new is there. I've either seen them once or twice before, at the very least. So usually, I usually do review our game rules though at the start. Like, hey, we're gonna play team deathmatch. Usual 3 hits, you're out. If you get hit in the head, you're out. And it's at the very least, it's a casual brush over.
Gotcha.
Um, and yeah, like the last game on my church though that I hosted, I got some caution tape and I tied it like around the stair rails, just so like I wouldn't even have to tell them. But I was like, all right, you can go. Like when new people came, I said, okay, you can go check out the church, go take a round, and they can already pick up that you're not supposed to go up there. And I explained it to everyone again. So I'll definitely enforce like the newer stuff, and I'll brush over the casual more known stuff. And if there's any new rules that need to be placed into effect, I'll do that. Like you said, be elastic with your rules.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, just showing visual cues on things like you're not allowed to go here, so you put caution tape up, or even something as if you're going to have a lot of people that are new and you're expecting lots of people have said, yeah, I want to come or whatnot. Be sure to show that you are the person running the event. Wear something bright or have something that says I'm running it, or at least greet people that come in. We've been to events before where everyone was sort of sitting around and we're like, so who's actually running the event right
Oh
now?
wow.
And I guess they were like waiting for more people to get there before starting it, but they were just talking to other people, just like we were talking to people. So we are kind of like, oh, it's this guy. Okay, cool. We had no idea. Like we had somebody came with like tons of Nerf stuff. Like, oh, it's got to be this guy. He's just like he's strapped to the nines. Like, oh no, I'm here. I'm ready.
I'm ready to
Who do I
play.
report to? We're like, not us.
I know one game we went to, Josh and I, people kept asking us, are you running the event? Are you running the event? And I'm like, nope, not this time.
Yeah,
I'm here for fun. I'm going to be the jerk that tries to abuse all the rules.
there we go.
Actually, I wasn't even that guy. I walked a lot.
No, but
It was like The Walking Dead, which is cool because that's a cool series.
yes, I have heard that.
Yes.
But speaking of visual
Yes.
cues, yet again, that kind of leads us to promoting your event.
No, wait a second. How?
Well, I was gonna say that first off,
Pull it together, Josh. How are we going to do
I gotta
this?
cut him off, Shawn. Why gotta cut him off?
I'm giving him
first
time to
off, if you
formulate.
remember one of the first games that we had big old flags that we had made, and that's how people knew how to get to where we were. They were like, "Oh, where is it being held? Oh, boom, flags are there." Secondly, and what I was originally going to say is flyers. If you are going to be doing things on college campuses, basically making yourself visual, not even necessarily physically, but on the internet as well. So college campuses, forums. There's a lot of ways to get your name out there.
I mean, let's be honest. I'm huge in Japan. I'm like a pop star over there. I don't
It's
know
true.
why. So I leverage that to say, hey, demographic that likes me, why don't you come do Nerf too? And then they're like, Onto ni? And I'm like, I don't speak Japanese, so it doesn't work out. But basically, yeah, internet is a great resource to network nowadays. I mean, look, there are a lot of blogs out there. Like, there's this guy, you might have heard of him. He runs Basic Nerf. He has a blog. All these groups are kind of popping up all over the place. I mean, there's a big thing going on in New York right now. College campuses are great. I know over in Atlanta, Georgia, they have a bunch of big celebrities, big Nerf names over there playing Humans versus Zombies right now.
They're
I've heard
celebrities
that,
to
I've
us.
heard
Yeah. This is going to seem horribly dated when, like, 2 years someone is going through our archives and being like, oh, that was before Atlanta went into the ocean
that.
and became the lost city of Atlanta.
I see what you did there.
That episode is probably like 10 years old now. But anywho, but yeah, the internet is a great resource to use, even if you don't like using Facebook or Google Plus. I actually went ahead and created a meetup group. Meetup is this website where people kind of go there to look for activities to do in their area. It can be singles, it could be people who like tabletop gaming. I mean, you can make a meetup for anything. There is an entry fee. You have to pay some amount of money. I don't remember. I'll be honest with you, it's a little on the pricey side, I think. But it's a great resource if you just want people who are looking for fun, a way to go towards that and find that group.
And the other thing is, I mean, look for Nerf groups in your area, because obviously if you're trying to grow and expand, that's your target demographic right there. People that are already into Nerf that live close by. So if there are games hosted in your area, go to those games. You get to see how they run them, see what people kind of expect. Anything that you can improve on, you're like, cool, I got an idea of something cool to do in my game or something I want to improve in my game. And, talk to the person who's organizing it. Say, hey, I'm thinking about running Nerf games. It's going to be this and this. Can I promote it at your game? Can I talk to the players while they're doing a big get together at the beginning, or maybe even just while you're on the field, like, hey, I also do Nerf over here because I run a game.
I'll be honest with you, Josh and I have talked about this recently. We're probably going to print business cards pretty soon.
Yep.
Anytime I'm at a Target or a Toys R Us and see some college age or above kid looking at Nerf blasters, I'm going to be like, here's my card. Get in touch with me. I'll find the right people for you.
That's super smart, though. That's super. Because can I just add on to this conversation?
Of course.
Go ahead.
All right. Yeah. I mean, you guys mentioned earlier about being physical with flyers on campus. Usually, when I play with my friends, that's who I organize the games for. I call them up. I get to see them often. I'm trying to connect with them at the very least. Hey man, how you been? Oh, I'm good. I'm good. How's your Nerfage been? Oh, I actually got a text this morning from my friend. Hey, it's been a while. Like, you have any Nerf games planned soon? And kind of just making that connection, like I said, and those business cards help you do that. And the internet is a freaking awesome, great thing, and it's a great tool. That group I keep talking about, Norwalk Regional Nerf League, they sent me an email about October last year.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, hey, we found you on YouTube, and YouTube, once again, is part of the internet. So internet's a great tool for spreading and finding games and all sorts of stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
I mean, honestly, that's the coolest thing I love about your website and how your games, because you're recording everything. I've seen the footage from the church, and it's awesome. It's really cool. You're running around with the snap fires. You can see them going up and down as you run through the hallways, and that's awesome. And as a player, I look at that, and I think to myself, I want to be there. I want to do that. That looks so cool from his perspective. There's no reason I can't go and do that too.
If you guys ever come down, dude, I'll organize a game for you in that place.
Oh, dude, we'll do it. We'll rock it, man.
Road trip.
Time.
I've done the 6-hour drive for less important reasons.
True.
Went down there to look at a car once.
Yep.
And what's funny? Josh is thinking it's that time we went to go look at a car. Nope, this was the time before that.
You told me about that time.
Yeah, one time we drove all the way down to LA to look at a car. We got there at 7 a.m. and they're like, oh, sorry, we sold the car. And I'm like, called and talked to you last night. How did you sell the car already? Like, oh, yeah, but we got this other car on the lot. And we're like, no, we don't even care at this point. Josh and I tried to do the same thing last year when he was looking for a new car. And the same thing, well, not the same thing. They just kept changing the price.
They kept changing the price
on me.
The closer we got to LA. The closer I got, the higher the price got. Wait a minute. You're going backwards, man.
It's Heisenberg's uncertainty theorem. The faster you get to a point, the less certain you are about the price of a point.
There we go.
There's going to be physicists in the audience who get that joke.
I can kind of understand that when I apply it to organizing Nerf events. I think we can kind of branch into a little bit of a topic, picking the correct dates and picking good days to play. What do you guys think about that?
Oh, no, that's really important. Go on.
Well, yeah, like the last Nerf event I planned in my church, that was the last one I personally organized. And I invited about 30 to 35 people, even though I was like, this might be too many people to fit indoors. But usually, some people can't go. And so I had to switch the date maybe like a week before it because I found out I was doing something that night. So I had to switch the date. And even though I talked to like pretty much everyone there and I was like, did a poll with my friends like, hey, would this be an okay date to switch to? I pretty much mashed two groups of my friends together, and one group of friends in particular, they didn't even come. And some stuff popped up with them. Some people were on the maybe side, but I think just switching the date, not having it for certain as the time got closer, kind of led to us having lower attendance.
Yeah, that's honestly an excellent point right there. Timing. There's a saying, isn't it? Like, I'd rather have a plan with
I love it when a plan comes together.
dun 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 dun. No, there's some saying where basically execution is more important than the plan itself. It's better to be 90% on time with 10% of a plan than 100% with a plan but with 0% on time.
Yeah, I know. I remember what you're talking about.
Yeah, there's some saying like that where execution is key. It doesn't matter how good or bad your game is, just make sure you follow through on it correctly.
No,
That's
definitely.
something Josh and I were even talking about last night. We're trying to plan our next Nerf War, and we're like, what's going on this weekend? What's going on this weekend? And since we've been talking to all these Nerf groups, we realized that our schedule is booking up very quickly on weekends. For example, I can tell you for this month right now, next week there's a game up in San Francisco. Then after that, next week is a game up at this rock climbing gym. Next week, game in San Francisco. The week after that is going to be our Nerf game, and then the week after that is going to be another game in a rock climbing gym.
Yep.
So
and then every Sunday, there's a group that's close by us, by a community college that does stuff. So literally, you could go Nerf every day and not have to drive, more than an hour?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure there are some people listening like, that's amazing. It's so awesome that the Nerf community is so alive there. Honestly, it's budding right now. It's growing. The trick, honestly, is like we all mentioned, online resources. You talk to people, you go to these games, have a conversation with them, network, you know? You find out about all these people who play Nerf that you never realized it because they just assumed their 8 or 9 friends were the only people who are interested, and the word isn't getting out there well enough.
Yeah.
In the end, honestly, word of mouth is going to be the best way to win people over. Like, I've talked to people online who have come to our games, and I love it when we have visitors from the internet come to our games. But I know a lot of our personal audience is coming directly from word of mouth.
Yeah.
That one person has a good time, he brings 3 or 4 of his friends, you know, he loans out their blasters, they enjoy it, they bring more of their friends. It's organic growth. That's what's going to make this work, really. And that's how you build a local community as opposed to kind of like an idea of a disjointed community. Like before this, I didn't know all this stuff was going on in the Bay Area. I assumed there was us in Northern California, Basic Nerf down there in Southern California, and then we got Georgia, New York, and then wherever else, and that was pretty much it. But the more you talk to people, you more realize Nerf is happening all around you.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of Nerf in all of us. And it's just
cheesy.
It's a matter of going and speaking the gospel and having it just come out and everyone joins together.
Yes, indeed.
Nice one, Shawn.
I know. I have a gift. I will proselytize. I will preach the name of Nerf. It's hard for me because I know the word I'm supposed to use. It's just hard for me not to say the word prostitute instead.
There we go.
They made 2 very, very different words sound very, very similar. And that was a bad idea. Yeah, for the most part, networking is always going to be a great way to attract more people to your games. Just get out there and talk. It's not as bad as you think.
Really? It isn't.
Just to add on to this really quick, and when when your group starts growing locally and organically, like you mentioned, then it attracts more online attention, and you can add on to that even more. But when you get your core solid group strong and growing, and that's when other stuff will start falling into place, like online meetings and matchups.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like we had a core we have like 5 or 7 people I feel like are always 100% going to be at our games.
Yeah.
Then even if it's just 1 or 2 people showing up from that point, it's enough to get a game going. Our last game had 25 people.
Yeah.
Which was fantastic, but we could have made do with 10. It's about the people you play with and having fun with them. So even if you can't get a big game going, it doesn't matter. Just get out there and have fun. Play. You don't have to be a huge group to have a great time playing Nerf. What we do at our games that we really enjoy is we do like a round table discussion after our games just to compare notes and kind of talk with the group.
At a round table pizza.
That's brilliant, isn't it?
You see what we did? It's a
Inception or something there. Shoot.
No, it's a great way to get feedback from people. I mean, we've had games that were hits, game types that were misses. People were like, oh, this worked, this didn't work. And we usually all take everything into account. You know, sometimes we're like, well, there's nothing we can do about that, or here's a good way to fix it. But definitely, especially if you're trying to grow, taking that advice from people and trying to just always make your games better. Because if you're just like, no, this is the way I like it and I want to do it, and then, you know, people aren't going to have as much fun as they could be having, and that's really what Nerf's all about.
Yeah, and at the same time, take all the advice with a grain of salt. My natural attitude usually is anyone has commentary, just try and fix it.
Mm-hmm.
But we've had people say things like, for example, we have a respawn timer. It's sometimes 15 seconds, it can be 30 seconds, it depends. But I had one person say, I start counting the respawn time before I get back to the respawn point. They're like, oh, you're supposed to be there when you respawn, that's our rule. And they're like, well, it's unfair because other people are faster getting back to respawn point than me because they can run faster. So you should have a longer respawn time for people who run faster and a shorter respawn time for people who run slower.
I'm taking that one with a grain of salt.
Yeah, just let that one sink in a little bit. So logistically, what I can do is have everyone run a mile before the game. Hope they're not just jobbing me and running really, really slowly, and give them a respawn time based on that, or just kind of say, hey, it's not a video game. I can't just institute stuff perfectly.
Yeah. People are going to be better at things. People are going to be worse at things, you know? I mean, that's the nature of playing in real life. Mm-hmm. So what are you going to do? I mean, there's some things that you can't change and some things that you can. Again, take all the advice with a grain of salt, and then things that you can improve on them.
And honestly, it's trial by fire. You have to do it and learn how. Trial by error. That's what I'm looking for. It's both, honestly. But just get out there, try it. I mean, we can give advice all day, basically, on how we run our events. But in the end, where you're playing could be a completely different environment, so it'll help. But just getting your hands dirty is going to be the best way to learn how to run a Nerf War.
For sure.
Yeah. So make sure you learn from it, though.
Oh,
exactly.
Yeah. If you're just going to have a Nerf War, everyone tells you all this bad criticism, it goes horribly, and you just quit or keep doing it exactly the same, your attendance is going to go down. If you quit, you're not going to play Nerf at all. If you're going to have an event and take hold of it, I would say.
Yeah, you have to realize that running a Nerf event is a commitment. It's a time commitment. It's an energy commitment. It's a resource and potentially a money commitment. So you have to be ready to put some time and effort, at least, into it for it to be good.
Yeah, so on that note, I would say we've covered locations, we've covered kind of like rules, how to promote your games. Jason?
Covered advertising.
Yes, we did.
Nope.
Jason, do you have any last thoughts you would say to anyone looking to start their own Nerf game?
I would say, start locally, start small, start amongst your friends. It doesn't have to, you don't have to give them a hailfire with all 18 dart magazines and be like, yeah, let's play Nerf. Give them like a Maverick, start them off small, and then their love for the game will grow. Make sure, I would say emphasize fun, and, be safe. Don't do anything too crazy or stupid. And I think that's pretty much it for me on that.
Yeah, good
All right, how about you, Josh? Any last thoughts?
I mean, I think we pretty much covered it. It's just go out there, be safe, have fun. Those are the most important things, and then just grow from there.
Yeah, I'd say my last thoughts, the best advice I can give people looking to start their Nerf Wars is don't be afraid to try and be a leader. Make sure when you're going forward, be confident. Even if you're not a very confident person, just have faith in what you're doing and that you're doing it well. Try not to half-ass anything. Go in with a full effort. The effort you put into it is the effort you'll get back out. If you just tell people to come to an event and do nothing, then you're going to get nothing out of it. I think what I like best about Josh and my wars is we put a lot of hard work into them. And when you see that hard work pay off at the end of the day, that's sometimes more fun than even playing Nerf itself.
True facts.
I feel like there's some kind of like cheesy lesson you can learn from that last saying you just said.
I eat a lot of cheese, so a lot of cheese comes back out in the form of women. And the sometimes too. Yeah, that's pretty much it. If you have any additional comments, thoughts, if you want to ask more specific questions about how we handle individual things in our Nerf Wars, feel free to leave some comments on the podcast video, our website, bayareanerf.com.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to,
I'll answer them too, by the way. I'll stick around the video and on your site,
Oh yeah, definitely, and definitely check out Basic Nerf's blog. It is amazing. A lot of good information on there. He's breaking a lot of stories, like Jason mentioned earlier. He has a pretty good relationship with Hasbro.
Yep.
Ask him for free blasters. I hear he gives them out like candy. I do not do that. I said that thinking I was funny. He does not actually give out free blasters. Do not actually do that unless.
Sorry, guys. Once in a while, but sorry.
Right? You got to
My
stick
last-
around, keep watching him, because who knows when he's going to do something crazy. Like
Maybe
give out a
if
blaster.
you get him up to a bunch of likes on Facebook, maybe he'll consider it.
Right, he'll
So
hold a
check out his
contest or
website.
something.
We'll put a link to it into the notes for this as well.
Yes, indeed.
But yeah, definitely leave comments. Let us know how you run games, how you organize things, what you want to know what we do differently than you. We love this kind of feedback, and it helps grow the community, and that's what we love to do.
Yeah, definitely. So, Jason, thanks for being on our show, man. Awesome
No
having you
problem.
on.
It was a pleasure. I'm happy we're able to get some time for you on here. So from everyone at Nerfcast, this is Shawn.
This is Josh.
Basic Nerf and Jason Basic Nerf.wordpress.com.
Woo!
Yeah,
Basic
boy.
Nerf WordPress.com. We're out of here.
Later, guys.
Happy nerfing.